nagaf, and it means to strike or to smite. We think of plague, maybe it's not the proper rendering of that. Plagues, you think illness and things of that nature. But this was God's way of attacking the Egyptians. Why would he want to attack the Egyptians? Well, it tells us in Exodus 12:12 that against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment, for I am the Lord. Apparently there was an opposition, right? And God's in opposition. Remember, he scattered the nations. And they're actually, all those nations become demonically controlled. And it's really Yahweh against the whole demonic realm. Yahweh against the whole demonic realm. And because who are the Elohim of Egypt, right? And that's what it calls them, the Elohim. The Elohim, the sons of Elohim, we understand that, the sons of Elohim is another name for angelic creatures, right? Either elect or fallen. And so he says against all the gods of Egypt, and of course they had all these gods. I mean, we know the gods that they had. I mean, it was a barrage of gods of Egypt, and all ungodly. It was all part of the myth that they followed of that day. And yet they were all representative of demonic creatures, really. Some of them even look like it. So it's a war. And we understand, the wars of Yahweh. It mentions that in the Old Testament. There was a book written called the Wars of Yahweh. Yahweh is at war. He's a warrior God, right, that conquers. And Jesus is no different, by the way. He's a warrior God. He just hasn't gone into that. Well, you read the end of Revelation, warrior God is coming to fight for his land. And so we have this holy war, if you will. It's a holy war that goes on. And it's between Yahweh and the demonic realm. And he uses plagues to afflict and to smite the Egyptians, to bring Pharaoh to the point where he will let the people go. And he says, afterwards, I brought them out. And so the emphasis is upon there. This is actually God at work. He is the one that actively brings the Jews out of Egypt. And he does it by means of all these plagues, striking the Egyptians. Verse 6. I brought your fathers out of Egypt, and ye came unto the sea. And the Egyptians pursued after your fathers with chariots and horsemen unto the Red Sea, Yam Suf, which is actually the Sea of Reeds. And so they didn't actually cross the exact spot of the Red Sea, but it was a channel that went north of it, and it was deep. They couldn't cross it. That's how deep it was. So God had to split it in order for them to get through. But it was actually called Yam Suf as the Sea of Reeds. But he brings them through that, and then he's the leader, he's the deliverer. And so verse 7, watch my time here. Verse 7, when they cried out to the Lord, Yahweh, he put darkness between you and the Egyptians. It's all in the book of Exodus. You can read about it. And he brought the sea upon them. He collapsed the sea over them, and it covered them. And your eyes have seen what I have done in Egypt. And so we see this, that their eyes, so if you go back to, well, it's interesting, he puts mentions the dark. It doesn't mention he split the sea or any of that, but it mentions that the sea covered the soldiers. But he says, your eyes have seen what Yahweh did to Egypt in Exodus 14, 30 and 31. It says, thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord did among the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. And so, isn't that incredible? So here, this is, faith really in the works. And they're seeing these Egyptian soldiers, being washed up onto the shore at their feet, dead. This whole army they were so afraid of that they didn't even have to raise a sword against, and God took them out. Pretty incredible. So they saw it with their eyes, and faith becomes sight at some point, and they see it, and they realize, well, God did do this great, magnificent work. And then he jumps to this other phrase here at the end of the verse, and ye dwelt in the wilderness a long time, or for a season. And this refers to the failure at Kadesh Barnea, when they believed the 10 spies and they didn't believe Joshua and Caleb. And so it led to them wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, and all those 20 years and old would die off. And so what we're left with really is the second generation of Jews that came out of Egypt and those that were born in the wilderness. And that's going to be the group that's going to come into the land. So this is grace. Again, this is when we talk about the grace. So we see God didn't cast them off. God in grace was still going to fulfill his promises. But the ones who disobeyed, they're going to die. But the next group, God's going to show grace to, in spite of all their failures. And he brings them out that he might bring them in to the promised land. Verse 8 then, it tells us that Yahweh brought them into the land of the Amorites, which was on the other side of Jordan, the east side, and they fought with you. They attacked you. And I gave them into your hand that you might possess their land, and I destroyed them from before you. And so the term Amorite was a nomadic group. They were considered Canaanites, and they dwelt on the east side and the west side of the Jordan. But they were also, the name Amorite it's kind of a diverse term. And so if you lived like to the east in Babylon and they used the word Amorite, it could mean an Israelite. You know, it was just a Westerner, somebody that lived over in that area, and they just used the catchphrase to talk about all of them. So we understand in the text as we're getting through, and you got opposition between Israel and Amorites, are talking specifically. Sometimes Amorite means all the Canaanites, and sometimes they were actually these tribal groups. And so because we know that it was Og and Sihon who they fought, and they were called Canaanites. But here he calls them Amorites, so you can see the interchange of the term. So they were defeated on the east side during the days of Moses at the end of the 40 years. And the text says that they attacked the Jews. The Jews didn't attack them, they attacked the Jews, and the Jews met them in battle the way God told them to, and God delivered them into their hands. They defeated these two great Canaanite kingdoms on the east side. And so with the goal in mind, God was prepping on the east side to get them across the river to get them into the land proper so that they may possess that. So in order to do that, God's going to have to take out the enemy. So verses 9 and 10, we get to the book of Numbers, chapter 22 through 24, and the story of Balak, who was the king of Moab. And they hire a Babylonian prophet named Balaam to curse the people of Israel. And it backfires on him. Every time he goes to curse them, and he even told him, he said, I can only do that which God tells me to do. This is a pagan Babylonian prophet. So he must have had some contact with the true God, and so God intercedes and he makes him bless the children of Israel, and Balak's getting mad as anything. So Balaam tells them how to really mess these guys up, and that is corrupt them. I can't curse them. Every time I try, God steps in and I bless them. But you guys can go and try to curse them through immorality, right? So they run a block party, and they invite all their neighbors, and the Jews are there. Hey, come on over here. We're going to have a party. You know, we're going to tailgate. It was a tailgate party, I think, you know. And everybody together, you know, and so they all get drunk, and then they bring out the prostitutes, right? So they corrupt it, and then Phinehas brings it to an end. He spears the two people who were very blatant. And again, this is God delivering them out of the hands of these pagans. So verse 9 and 10, and Balak the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, arose and warred against Israel, and sent and called Balaam, son of Beor, to curse you, but I would not hearken unto Balaam. Therefore he blessed you still, so I delivered you out of his hand. So, and then he jumps again. So he's not going in detail here. He jumps again, verse 11, and describes after the death of Moses, the Jews went over the Jordan, actually through the Jordan, and came into Jericho. So he doesn't really describe, if you will, he doesn't really describe the fact that river split. Same thing, he doesn't say that about the Yam Suf either, but it did. But he kind of just jumps to this point of going over the Jordan and coming unto Jericho. And the men of Jericho, is the phrase there, fought against you. He's going to mention the Amorite, the Pezerite, the Canaanite, the Hittite, Girgorite, so on and so forth. There's 7 of them, 7 great nations that he'll depict. But the men of Jericho, the term men there is actually the word Baali. And Baali comes from Baal. Baal was the false god, but that god Baal, which was a very common, the storm god, if you will, of the Canaanites. And it also meant Lord, Master. It had a lot of other connotations to it. So that term was used in many different ways. But we understand it mostly of that. So somehow they translate, and King James anyway translates it, the men of, so it could be the leaders, because this was the ruler. It could mean Lord, ruler, people. Some say the civilization of Jericho. I think it's probably the leaders, understanding what that word means as Lord, the lords, the leaders of that. Or the other argument is, this is Yahweh against the gods of Egypt. This is Yahweh against the gods of Canaan. So it very well could be that also. Not too many point that out, but that's another connotation that it could be, that he was going to root Balaam, not Balaam, but Baal out from among them, being the chief patron god of the Canaanites. So it's a holy war, right? It's a holy war. They're in battle. God against the gods of Egypt, now God against the gods of the Canaanites. He mentions 7 nations. These were city-states, if you will, and they were all considered Canaanites, and every one of these city-states had sub-regions, and they would get into these vassal Caesarean treaties with them to protect them. So it spread out throughout all the land. 7 nations, and they'll all be defeated. He mentions the same back in Joshua 3:10. And so somehow all the 7 came to Jericho, but I think that's unlikely. This is summary fashion in how he's depicting all this. All these groups were the groups they would end up fighting. And so I don't think all 7 ended up at Jericho. It didn't seem that way anyway, because we hear there's other voices from other areas. Some say it was, Egypt came to help them. Well, we know through the what were they, the Mar tablets and some of the other tablets that we had, that they were calling out for help to the Egyptians wouldn't help them. The Jews are coming to get us. And the Hammurabi, right? The Hammurabi, they were coming to get me, is what the kings would say, and they're going to destroy things, and they never followed through. The Egyptians turned a blind eye to them. So now another verse 12 and 13. We're almost done here. 12 and 13. I sent the hornet before you, which drave them out from before you, even the 2 kings of the Amorites, but not with sword, nor with bow. And I have given you a land for which ye did not labor, and cities which ye did not, which ye build not, and ye dwelt in them, and of vineyards and of olive yards which ye have planted not do you eat. So we use this term hornet that's been used previously, and it's kind of disputed. What does this actually mean? And so some say it was Egypt because they were the ones that came in to try and help the Canaanites, but historically they never did. Some claim it was some kind of an afflicting insect that was sent up against the Canaanites. That could be. I mean, that's a good possibility. The other view is this metaphorical idea of the hornet that comes to afflict and to bring terror. People run when hornets come. I mean, that's the thing. I remember when me and Tommy were in the backyard. This is in Mequon, and he might have even started working with you guys. He might have been 9th grade or something. And we're up moving this wood in the backyard. And then all of a sudden, 50 to 100, all these things are around me. And I didn't even know it. I'm busy working. And Tommy's like, Dad. I was like, hornets. And I said, whoa. So we took off. He passed me. He was younger than me. He passed me, and I mean, I'm covered with hornets, and I'm just smacking them as I'm running, and the hornets are just dying falling. So I had 13 stings. I made it to the back door and got in the house, closed the door. I don't care how tough you are. The hornets come, you run. They afflict. All right. So I think maybe this idea of the affliction and terror. I was terrorized by them things. And so that's probably the idea behind it. Two references that are mentioned here. Exodus 23:28 says, I will send hornets. And in the English, it's in the plural. In the Hebrew, it's actually a singular. I will send, and it's actually got a definite article, the hornet. So the same way that it is written here. Then Deuteronomy 7:20, God will send the hornet. Same grammatical construct. Definite article, singular. And Joshua uses the same here also, the hornet. So little hornet, maybe. Metaphorical, probably more likely. Verse 12, they drove them out from before you. That's in verse 12. They drave them out. And so, now we're told in other passages, the irony of this whole thing, we're told in other passages that God drives them out. Now we're told the hornet drives them out. Well, which is it? All right. The answer is yes. Right? God uses means to an end, and sometimes, he'll use some kind of an affliction, but it's really, he said, Assyria is the rod of my wrath, the rod of my anger. And he went after the Jews in the northern kingdom, right? And so he used Assyria as he would use Babylon, as he would use Greece to accomplish his means. And so the result was the people got driven out like a hornet going after them. And it didn't happen with sword, it didn't happen with bow, it was done by the power of God, not by might, right? What's that verse, Dave?
Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit.
Right, that's the one. Zechariah, I believe, right? So I knew you knew it because I've heard you quote it before. I just couldn't remember the whole thing. Not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord, the power of God. And I've given you the land for which you didn't labor, and cities. I'm giving you these cities. Now they had to reconstruct the cities because a lot of them got burned. But I'm giving you all these cities. You didn't work for them. You didn't build them. And then all these vineyards and olive yards, I'm giving them to you. You didn't plant them, but you're getting to eat from them. This is grace. This is by the grace of God. So we see the power of God, and we see the grace of God in this section extended to Israel. All the time he's setting up this whole messianic line, isn't he? I mean, he's got to set up he's got to do this to all of Israel. They have to have a land because the Messiah is going to be a king, and he has to have a land to live in. So you see all of this by the hand of God and by the grace of God. And the ultimate goal is he's going to save the world. He's going to save the world through the Messiah. It didn't happen yet. Messiah came first time, second time. He's going to save the world. The Jews are really going to be behind it. The most despised people, all the nations of the world are going to surround the Jews. They're all coming up against the Jews, but it's really the Jews that repent and call for him. So in the end, it's the Jews calling for Messiah who will come and save the world from just the destruction of the Antichrist and Satan himself. And so what a plan. What we see at this section right here of Scripture, now they're finally getting into that land, right? It's just step one of possessing the land. So I'm back next week, and I might finish the whole chapter. I'm going to try. And then I'm gone for 2 weeks. Actually, I'll be back the 30th, but Harry, let me see who's going to teach. I don't know yet, but somebody will teach on the 30th. And Benjamin's going to preach on the 30th. You guys going to be here? No? You guys going to be gone? You keep missing him. Okay. All right. Well, he can't preach the 23rd because he's working, so I knew that. So Harry's going to preach the 23rd, Benjamin's on the 30th, and we're going to figure out the Sunday school hour, what we're going to do. All right. Any questions, comments?
The idea of the hornet, I think of how much fear when people talk about killer bees.
Oh, yeah.
Bees.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very unwarranted fear unless you were right. healing with one of those hives.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he did send a hornet with him,
Mm-hmm.
but then God used that fear,
Right.
something local,
Mm-hmm.
from the Israelites.
Right.
And so I can see where, I mean, just look at the fear people had. We know now it was all, you know, kabuki theater, but
Mm-hmm. Right.
there were people that died.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
99.9% of anybody caught it got better. But yet
Mhm.
everybody was scared to death.
Mm-hmm.
Did everything they were told to do.
Mhm.
Ran in front of it. Lost their businesses, closed
Mhm.
down, did everything.
Right.
I can see where God could easily have used something
Mm-hmm.
to terrify those people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's another in Exodus it also talks about I'll send my angel before you. So I don't want maybe hornet and angel or is another name for that. Or maybe he sent a big hornet. You read the book of Revelation, they got these demonic creatures coming out and they look like locusts, So maybe he had some kind of a demonic hornet that he sent. I don't know, but I tend to lean on the metaphorical issue. But
I have a Strong's Concordance here. H6880 is the word Sirah, Tsira, which means hornet, but the original was 6879, and it says a disease of the skin, leprous, possibly leprous. So could have been leprosy as well.
right, or some kind of affliction that was driving them. Something had to drive them out. And so there's other passages talk about I'll send my angel before you, So
There's a fear in both of them.
yeah.
It's just one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Plague like
Mm-hmm.
that has been around
Right.
for a while.
Yeah.
It will afflict you,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes time.
Right.
Whereas a hornet is like there, and
Mm-hmm.
the terror is quick, and
You're running when hornets come.
so either
Yeah.
one works.
Yeah. Right. Thanks for sharing that. All right, we got to wrap up here. Get ready for the service. Father, thank you for your grace and for the privilege we have to study the Word of God, and pray your blessing on each and every one. We're praying for the morning service. Bring